Hi, David.
Morning, Ray.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Morning, everybody.
Hey, Stephen.
Hi, Steve.
Steven.
Hey, what did you think
Stephen.
of the race on Sunday, Stephen?
Your friend?
What do you
No,
think of the
don't
race
tell
on
me
Sunday?
about it.
It was
I've
great.
I've got it taped and I'm just starting it.
Okay.
I know who won, but nothing else.
Oh, it was a very, very good finish.
Lisa,
Yes.
no motion from the foundation at this meeting. Cancel that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Who is thanking him?
I will be.
Terrific. Wonderful. Leaside parent.
Through that.
Steven Stein.
Yes, sir.
I had drinks with Ed Lee yesterday, and he handed me the McCullough book that he had borrowed. So I have it in my possession, but I'll bring it back in December when I'm back in town.
It's not me who is, Joe Clark, I think, looks after him.
Oh, it's Joe Clark. Okay.
And I've read both books, so.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was you or if it was Joe. It's okay. I will let Joe know.
David.
Yes.
David, I finished the September banking activity. Can I assume that all of the golf donations are in, that you don't have any more to deposit?
There's none that I know of. So it was really being managed by Bill. I can send Bill Steele the breakdown of who made the donations, but I don't know what Bill Martin will have to give you direction on who has what's still outstanding. I don't know.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I will send you the September banking activity. All right, and you check
Okay.
it. Bill has says it's okay. Bill Steele has said it's okay, but I'd like to hear from you that all the donations are in. So
Okay.
if you could send us a list of donations,
I will.
that would be fine. And some of them are any of them non-Rotarians where we would need
Yeah, so I have broken out, like, so my donation of the 750 is broken out between my sister, my brother, and myself. So I've broken that out on my list, so Bill will know exactly the dollar amount.
And you've included their addresses.
Addresses, emails, and phone numbers.
Terrific, wonderful. Can you copy me on it?
Yeah, I'll send it to both of you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Who's the valued customer who's just come in?
Show your face.
There we go.
Hi,
Ron Denham. I had put you down as reflection, and then I think we spoke 2 weeks ago and you said you were fine for me to do it. Did you want to do the reflection today, or shall I?
I'm ready for it.
Perfect. Okay. I couldn't remember what we said. I'm sorry. I'm still struggling with.
You put me down 2 weeks in a row. I said, no, I can cope with that.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'll say what I was going to say for later.
Okay. But Lisa, would you please resend the invoice for my membership dues? I think I'm way behind. And also a reminder as to where I am to make the transfer.
Sure. No problem.
David, how's Ed Lee?
How's what?
Ed Lee.
He's really well, the book, but he's just kind of getting back to his normal
I
self.
put it in the freezer because
But he's good.
Good.
Well, I don't see our guest speaker yet, and I'm wondering if this valued customer, Kim, is that you? Okay.
I'm just going to move to the other room for a minute, just because right now it's telling me my internet is unstable and everybody keeps freezing. So I'm going to see if this helps. So I'm just going to disappear for a second.
Okay.
Ganitsi, Hello, Ganitsi, how are you? If you have any time this afternoon, can you give me a call? And we should review all of the projects that that we've sent funds for, because I think that some of them have been paid, and you might have more money in the foundation than you think.
Wonderful.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Terrific.
let's talk about it. But I don't think so. I don't think so. We don't
Okay.
have any more.
Good.
Yeah.
I like people who are confident in in their numbers.
Yes, I am. I am so far. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But I'll call you. Yeah. Oh, okay.
There's Norma 30 Wellington. Welcome, Norma.
Hi, just getting organized. Hi there. Let's see. Okay. Little light on the subject. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Good
morning.
afternoon.
Actually, it's 12:04, so good afternoon, everybody.
It's still
So-
morning in Edmonton, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I happen to, the weather's colder, I know that.
Yeah, I got a call
Anyways.
from my son in British Columbia, in the south part of British Columbia in the Kootenays, and he said, yep, there's snow on the mountaintops now. So that maybe bodes well for a good ski season, because they haven't had a lot of last winter was not a strong season for them.
Well, this is really pretty unusual weather even for Toronto, isn't it? I mean, we've got 22 today and tomorrow. That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've decided to, they got all the patios cleared out, but they've decided to keep Market Street open till the end of, closed until the end of January. So that's kind of what's happening in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
It's fooling the wildlife, unfortunately. You know, many birds should have migrated by now, but they've been seduced to stay up here, and they're liable to get hit with the southern freezer, and it could be the end of the game for some of them.
Well,
speaking,
and I see the trees too. At the park, I look out onto Bearsy Park, and it's interesting watching the trees. They've been later changing. Go ahead, Jackie. Sorry, didn't mean to
I was
cut you
just
off.
going to say I met a bird watcher, somebody who's really quite active in the bird watching society in Canada, and she said she'd love to come to speak to us Rotarians. Are there bird watchers among us? Would that be an interesting topic? Oh, hearing nothing, I guess I won't be asking the bird watcher then.
I did go to a fascinating talk the other night at the Lawn and Tennis. Many of us, actually, there was a table of Rotarians there. That was interesting. Jackie, you were there. Actually, for those of you who missed it, this conversations, I think Tom Knott, are you here? You're responsible for that. It was Shackleton, and he spoke for the Royal Geological Society of Canada. He spoke for an hour. He was one of the lead people on the the ship, the expedition that went up searching for the quest up in the Arctic, and they found it. And it was a wonderful meal and a wonderful speaker for $50. I thought it was well worth what we got. More food than you could eat. So, and I know come January, there's more speakers. Tom Knott sends these notices out. So I'm just suggesting the next times it happens, they have some very interesting speakers. It was really nice to have a table of we had 9 people there, all Rotarians. So it was very nice. So consider it next time he puts a notice out. We can make a group.
Have you folks been reading about TMU, new medical doctor course that they're offering next September?
Yeah.
Is that the Dun? No, that's not Dunhouse. No, this is the new. Yeah, I read about. Now I've forgotten it.
A lot of articles about concern about this, about lowering the standards. How you don't have to have it. You don't have to do the MCATs. You don't have. It's any degree. It's really. I don't know whether to be concerned or not. Just appreciate any comments anybody else might have.
Mhm.
Aren't they
No.
restricting no foreign students? Is that for TMU?
No, TMU's, I don't know the national versus international representation. It's just, there's been a few articles in the local press about the standards that they're expecting for their candidates.
Yeah.
Okay, still no. How's our valued customer coming?
Well, because the colleges are really concerned, I see that Seneca College, one of the campuses is closing, temporarily closing, because of lack of foreign students. They're not getting the funds from foreign students, and then so they're temporarily closing one of the campuses. So this is interesting, the effect that that this is having on some of the colleges, and of course in Quebec. There's some real serious problems with community colleges because what restrictions are they placing there? They're placing even more restrictions. Interesting times.
Yeah.
I'm taking bets on who the valued customer is.
I know they have no video. They're only on, they only have voice. So I'm not sure if they're coming in from a phone or what, but we won't be able to see them anyway. So that probably answers your question, Jackie. It's probably not our speaker because they would be on a video link.
Hello, valued customer, please
There's
identify.
Coach Kim.
No, that's Coach Kim.
Kim, great.
Excellent. Well, we have 5 more minutes before the stated start time, so we'll give people some more time.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome,
that-
Coach.
Hello, hello. How is everyone?
Great.
Great.
How are
Great,
you?
great.
I'm great. Are you guys good with a blurred background, or would you prefer to see what corner of my house I'm currently hiding in?
No,
I have 2 of 3 kids home from school today, so plans have changed a little bit, but we're hoping they don't come barging in the middle, but they just might. So we'll see what happens.
Here, I'll blur mine in solidarity. There you go.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. I feel better already.
And just so you know, at any given moment, one of our dogs might just start barking. So don't worry about your kids.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We're just going to give everybody a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get started.
I have a question for Rotarians. Have any of your children or grandchildren been to one of Coach Kim's hockey camps at Total Female Hockey at Leaside?
So many potential customers, Jackie, to get to.
Right.
Got to start working
right,
harder.
Right.
Are you at the, I'm sure you'll go into it, but are you at the Leaside Arena?
I coach for Leaside, so I've been coaching there for, this will be my 16th season.
Oh,
But
goodness.
actually most of my camps are at Scotiabank Pond up in Downsview Park. So that's a little bit more central for my clientele than Leaside is. So, but I am at Leaside quite a bit during the hockey season.
I live just up the street. Well, not
Well,
just up the street, but we're in North Leaside.
You've probably seen my orange car, which is covered in my Total Female Hockey logos. So if you see
I will
that driving
definitely
by,
keep an eye out for it. Wave
That's
at
me.
you. Some random Mazda starts waving at you, you'll know.
it happens all the time. And then people will, like, they'll be going to the same arena as me. And they're like, how come you didn't wave back? I said, well, you're not driving an orange car covered in your hockey logo. How would I know?
How are we doing?
You're up to 25, Lisa, so you can start if you want.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we're very keen of us to start 3 minutes early, but I'm happy to. So welcome, everyone. Particularly welcome to Coach Kim, our speaker today. I'm just having a quick look. We're not sure who valued customer is, but if you're a guest with us this afternoon, please welcome, and we're happy to have you. Well, we're happy to have you, whoever you are. I'm going to turn the floor over to Ron Denham to give us another reflection in this, our 70th birthday month.
Thank you very much, Lisa. When I'm asked to reflect on life for these reflections, I have a tendency to look into some of the sages of times gone by, inspirational leaders and so forth. And this week I've identified 3 brief messages which I think might help us all negotiate difficult times. And the first is that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Secondly, and this might have something to do with the coaching, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. And then the final one from Rumi, one of my favorite quotations, which you've all heard before, but I think it's relevant. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. The messages for the day. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Ron. Very, very germane. Okay, well, moving right along, I'm going to ask Jackie to introduce our speaker for today. We're very excited to hear what you have to say.
My pleasure. Well, Kim McCullough is director and founder of Total Female Hockey, an organization that empowers players, parents, coaches, and organizations in the female game with information and inspiration that they need to drive their own success. For the past 20 years, Coach Kim has worked with thousands of players and teams across North America, both on and off the ice, sharing her experiences and her expertise on how to get to and excel at the next level in hockey. She draws from her own experience as a former NCAA D1 captain and professional hockey player at Dartmouth, I believe, who started playing the game in her early teens and creates the resources she always wished she had access to, but didn't exist when she was moving up the ranks. Kim is head of coach and player development with the Toronto Leaside Girls Hockey Association, which is the largest girls hockey organization in the world. She is also head coach of the Icelandic women's under-18 national team and the assistant for their senior women's national team. Kim is a mother of 3, 2 girls who play a lot of hockey and a son who doesn't. It was my pleasure to have watched Kim's career from Athlete of the Year at Northern Secondary School. And I can tell you from my observation that she is one strong woman. She's always been an advocate for the rights of women in sport from the early ages. Athlete of the Year at Northern. Her toughness was revealed in the latest book, Everyday Hockey Heroes, Volume 2. And she may tell you a little bit about what got her into that book. So it's my personal pleasure to see Kim and hear her speak after about 20 years of knowing her. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Jackie, and thanks everyone. That's a great introduction, and you already touched on a lot of my stories, so we'll delve a little deeper. But before we get rolling, I just wanted to share a couple Northern snippets. And as Jackie said, it's been about 25 years since I graduated. So I do get a lot of touch back with Northern. In particular, a lot of the players I coach who attend my camps or plan my teams attend Northern or have attended Northern over the last 20 years. So every fall, I get a whole bunch of cell phone pictures of my Athlete of the Year picture sent to me by these players, by these families when there's parent-teacher interviews, as if I haven't seen this picture enough in my life. And on occasion, they tell me that I look the same, so they become my favorites. So I appreciate that, but that's a consistent touch back to Northern. While I haven't been into the halls to see those pictures myself recently, I do every year get at least 4 or 5 sent my way. So thank you, whoever's in charge of not taking me off the wall. The second piece that Jackie already alluded to, I had the great honor of writing some of my own story in the book, and I have the book. I don't know if you can see it with the blurred screen, the Everyday Hockey Heroes stories, and this I think is the 3rd edition. And I credit a lot of what I learned at Northern for being able to write my own story in this book. I remember coming there as a grade 9 and being in the gifted program, and I can't quite remember who my teacher was. Jackie might remember who my teacher was. But the English teacher was so tough, and I had never gotten a B in my whole life, like never ever. And I remember getting a B+ on my first paper, and I was just devastated. And he really pushed me to be more clear and more concise, and all the things that I took as I went onto my journey into the Ivy League, playing and learning at Dartmouth College. And in my freshman English class with a lot of my other teammates and fellow athletes, I became the English tutor for everybody. I had a red pen, and I corrected a lot of papers on bus rides. And I learned all of that from my experiences at Northern, and went on to write for the Dartmouth College paper about sports and other non-sport related things. So a lot of that came from my experience back in my high school days, which is far too long ago now that I think about it. But I wanted to actually read a little excerpt from the book, which I know is probably, this isn't a book reading, but I just got it. And for once I sounded a little bit eloquent. So I figured I would start there, and then we'll roll on, because I do have some doozies of stories as both coach and player that I think would be fun to share. And certainly I'll leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. But the chapter is entitled, "We Can Do Hard Things." I went into labor when I was behind the bench coaching at the provincial championships. The contraction started during the second period. Nothing too bad. It was my second child, so I had a pretty good idea of what I was about to go through. Normally, I'm pretty animated behind the bench, standing with my foot up on the bench, lunging forward the way my college coach used to. And in this particular game, we had two of the best teams in the province playing each other. We were both in the top 5. It was a back and forth contest. I think it ended up being a 2-2 tie. But instead of being animated and giving a ton of feedback with the adrenaline pumping higher and higher, I was standing arms crossed, leaning against the wall, knowing that this would be the last hockey game I was going to coach in the provincial championship this year. And when the final buzzer sounded, I went into the dressing room, did the post-game wrap-up like I always did, and discussed the keys to success for the game the next morning, knowing full well I wasn't going to be there. I walked out the front door of the rink, said goodbye to all the parents and fans on my way out, and met my husband and father on the way to the car. I told them we would be going to the hospital instead of going home. I texted my assistant coaches a few hours later to let them know that they'd be running the show for the rest of the tournament. I emailed the players and families at 2:00 in the morning to let them know why I wasn't going to be at the rink the next day. My eldest daughter, Sasha, was born that night, and I think she's going to be a hockey player. So as Jackie said, I'm pretty tough. I came by that honestly. My parents are both entrepreneurs and very hard workers. But to me, that story seems relatively normal if you know me. And if you don't know me, it sounds super crazy. But certainly the players, the parents, the coaches that were in the rink that day were not surprised what was happening during that game, or that I was emailing everybody at 2:00 in the morning to tell them I wouldn't be there, being so polite. So as Jackie said, I started hockey at 13. I grew up in downtown Toronto. And so that's a little bit of a weird timeline for someone who grew up across the street from an outdoor rink. I played soccer at a very high level, basketball at a high level. I played both of those sports as well at Northern. And that's where my athletic career started. I was what you now probably can't call a tomboy, but definitely that would have been the category I would have been in throughout my whole schooling career. And I started at 13 actually because another girl finally joined my boys soccer team. So I had played on the same boys soccer team since I was 5 years old. And I'd always been the only girl, and all the challenges that came with that, including other coaches and parents yelling, go down the left side, they have a girl. And so I worked my way through that. And it was a different environment, 30, 35 years ago. You didn't see a lot of girls playing with the boys. And then finally, another girl joined the team. I was so excited. I thought, I finally have a friend. We trained kind of all year round, and I was going to have another friend. And she went to the same school as me. She went to Deer Park. And then in the winter, she left and she went to go play hockey. I was like, well, I want to go join my friend. Now, she was playing very high level boys hockey at the time, but she decided to switch over to girls hockey the following year. So I started at a house league level at Leaside at 13 years old. I have a great picture that, of me in baby blue with the old full leather gloves that I probably got at Canadian Tire. And the following year, her father put me on the AA hockey team. Now, if you're not familiar with the levels in girls hockey, AA hockey is the highest level of girls hockey in the province. So I went from house league right to AA. Obviously, I had the athleticism, but clearly he took me based on potential and the fact that his daughter and I were very good friends. But had I not had that opportunity and that door hadn't cracked a little bit open for me, I'm not sure I would be talking to you today. So I'm always very thankful of that opportunity. And, long story short, that player is also a skills coach and a full-time hockey person in Toronto as well. So we're still connected, and I still get to see her dad and chat a little bit about that door opening for me. But as I got into high school, I played high school hockey at Northern, which is a different experience than what I was used to in competitive hockey. I remember my high school days at Northern. Our hockey, I think our practices were 6 a.m. I remember I had one friend who could drive and had this old truck, like really old truck that we weren't sure would start every day. And she would drive around and pick us all up at some ungodly hour to get to these 6 a.m. practices. We'd throw all our equipment in the back of the pickup truck. And I think I spent most of those games trying to get this friend who drove us, who could barely skate, had to borrow all her hockey equipment. I spent every game trying to get her to score a goal. So I'd skate around with the puck. I'd go in and out of the zone. I'd tell her to stand right in front of the net. I'd pass her the puck. She'd fall over. I'd do it again, try to get her the puck, pass her the puck. She'd miss the net by 10 feet. And I remember those days so fondly. We won a lot of championships. I think we won the city championships quite a few times there. It was always us against North Toronto in the city championships, which was our Leaside teammates who each went to the opposite schools playing against each other in the city championships. So that was fun. So it was great to win, but really I look back on a lot of my high school sport days with such fondness because of those relationships. And while I had a lot of success, as Jackie said, I was athlete of the year. I think I was MVP in all 3 sports in grade 13. Those aren't the memories I have of the championships won. I have the memories of trying to get another teammate who, was a great friend to score a goal in soccer or get a basket in basketball. And I think that value of school sports is so huge. And as someone who pretty much exclusively coaches in the competitive side of sports, I'm starting to see that a lot of families and kids are only pursuing the competitive side. And I don't know what my sport path would have looked like had I not had that opportunity to play more community-based or school-based sports. It was such a joy, and it was such a release from the competitive environment that I was used to. So starting at 13 years old, I would say the best word to describe my intensity was I became obsessed with being a great hockey player. I was an excellent basketball player and soccer player, and I was not a good hockey player. And I didn't like not being good at a sport. That was not my identity. And so I was at the rink, the outdoor rink by my house every Friday night. My high school teammates and friends were certainly not at the outdoor rink with me. They were wondering why I wasn't going to the movies or the party or all the things that we do on a Friday night when we're attending high school. But I had a very close group of friends who understood. Most of us were in the gifted program together. Quite a few of us played soccer and hockey together, and they got it. They saw it in my eyes. They knew this is the track I wanted to go on. And for some reason, I still don't quite understand. 2 years after starting to play hockey at the age of 15, I wanted to get a scholarship to play college hockey. Now, keep in mind, this is pre-internet days. So it wasn't like you're Googling how to get a scholarship. I didn't know anyone who had a scholarship. I never was coached by anyone who had a scholarship. I had heard of people getting sports scholarships in other sports, and I had seen in magazines people getting scholarships for hockey, but I had no connectivity to that world at all. And so it was a brave new world compared to what is available for girls who have those types of dreams today. So I used to go to the library. I always say to my players, like, if you remember what the library was, and I had to open a book and try to learn as much as I could about how to become a better hockey player. And I remember I have a very distinct memory of going to the Nike store down on, it must have been on Bloor Street, back when I was in high school, and just wandering around looking at all the sports equipment as the jock that I was, and seeing on the wall a workout that one of the Canadian women's hockey players used as her off-ice training. And I wish I had a camera phone back then, because you didn't. When none of us had cell phones. I actually took a notebook out and wrote down the workout that was on the wall in the Nike store, because there was so little information available that actually spoke to me. I would open up a book and it would all be about how do you become 6'2", 200 pounds to play in the NHL. Well, that wasn't the direction I was going. Or it was opening up a magazine at the grocery store where all the little fitness models are on the front and talking about being a skinny size 0. Well, that wasn't what I was looking for either. And so I actually became a student of all the things off the ice when it came to nutrition, hydration, the mental game, the off-ice training. And while my skills on the ice were decent, and I certainly had the athleticism to fulfill my potential, a lot of the things I did in the gym and with the mental game were actually what caused me to become an elite hockey player, because at that time, no one did any of that stuff. I remember going out into the parking lot and warming up before a game. Now my 6-year-old's hockey team does that. But back in the mid 90s, everyone thought you forgot something in your car. Like, why are you going outside and running before a game? That wasn't normal. And so I definitely was comfortable being outside the box and not doing things the way that everyone else did, because with my obsession, I knew I was on my own path, and that to reach my goals, I couldn't just do what everyone else did, because then I'd end up like everyone else. And not that anyone else was ending up in a bad place, just wasn't the place that I wanted to end up in. So long story short, because I was at Northern and I was in the gifted program and I had quite a good average, a lot of opportunities opened up for me to play either Canadian sports or at the NCAA Division I level. And my parents both went to U of T. They're both PhDs. So, you know, that clearly, that or McGill was sort of told to me, those were my Canadian options. And that if I wanted to go to the States, I think I ended up with about 20 Division I offers. But it was pretty clear to me that it was Ivy League or bust in this nerdy household that I grew up in. So I visited a bunch of the schools, you name them, Harvard, Cornell, Princeton, Yale, Brown, and Dartmouth. So all the Ivy Leagues that play women's hockey. And I decided to go to Dartmouth College, which is in the middle of the mountains of New Hampshire. If you haven't been there, it's worth a drive, especially at this time of the year. We probably miss the leaves for right now, but it's a tiny town of 4,000 people that doubles when school's in session. So you get up to 8,000 people. And I had an amazing academic experience there. I did not think I'd end up there, having come from downtown Toronto into the middle of nowhere in the woods of New Hampshire. But it certainly was a great fit for me academically and athletically. And again, I credit, you know, my academic program at Northern. My first year at Dartmouth was by far the easiest academically. Probably helped that we had OAC. Many of my courses were repeats of what I had done in my grade 13 year in the gifted program. And so I had a 4.0, and my parents were very impressed. I did not have the guts to tell them that I was just redoing the calculus I had done the year before, or that I was English tutoring all the other athletes, or that I had to take freshman French because I didn't place out of it because I didn't have AP courses. So you can imagine someone who's done OAC French in a first-year French class. It was a little bit easy. So the nice thing was, though, because the academic fit was so great, I was really able to focus on hockey. And so, you know, the timeline now, I went from house league to Division I college hockey in 5 years. That was the track I had been on, which is very fast. And so that first year at Dartmouth, because the academics were relatively easy, I won't say they were easy, but they weren't necessarily what I was expecting that I was going to encounter. I wasn't staying up and pulling all-nighters. I wasn't crying because I got a C on an exam. I had none of the stress that a lot of my teammates were having surrounding their academics. And so I could really focus on hockey. And when it came to hockey, I was way behind everybody else. So I think the coaches saw that I had taken off in those 5 years, how much potential I had, but I was by no means a fully formed hockey player. I had never made Team Ontario. I certainly wasn't on track to make Team Canada at that point. I was just a kid with great grades who had a ton of potential, who fit in an Ivy League environment. So great, another door that cracked open for me that I decided to bulldoze my way through. And so I went in and we had our first couple practices of the year, and I was up and down the ice. I was fit. I had done all these workouts. I won all the fitness testing for the team, and I get called in on the second skate, and the coaches tell me that they're changing me to be a forward. I had been a D my whole life. I had never played a shift of forward in my whole life. Now, in my minor hockey career, whether it was at Northern or with Leaside, I was a rushing defenseman. I won't say I was Bobby Orr, but that was kind of what I was doing. I would touch every corner of the ice on every single shift. And it was a little bit like I was a Tasmanian devil out there. And so I can understand now as a coach, looking back on it, why they didn't want this defenseman who really skated around like they were a center playing defense at the Division I college level. They didn't communicate that to me. As soon as they told me I was a forward, all I could think about is I have no idea how to play forward. So I had to figure that out. And again, because the classroom environment was pretty smooth sailing for me, I really became a student of that position and a student of the game. I went out for extra ice sessions. I'd have extra meetings with the coaches. I had the bandwidth because of how I had set myself up for success off the ice. And so we had a great team. We won a lot of championships. And in that first year, I went from being a fourth liner who had never played forward before. By Christmas, I was on the second line. And by the end of the first year at college, I was at my first Team Canada tryout. I had 27 points my freshman year, which, you know, in the college hockey environment, that's a lot of points. I was the most improved player on the team. And that 1 year to go from not even playing the position to being at a Team Canada tryout, I still actually can't believe it happened. And it wasn't on the radar. I had no inclination I would ever get invited to a Team Canada tryout. I hoped for it, but I'd only been playing hockey for 5 years. And I remember that first Team Canada tryout, clear as day. I was in Montreal. I drove up there with another teammate from Dartmouth who had been on the under-18 national team before. And she was quite further up the food chain than I was. And I got there and I was roommates with Hayley Wickenheiser. It's a little bit intimidating because while there hadn't been an Olympics yet, everybody knew who Hayley Wickenheiser was. She's the most intense person I've ever met in my life, and I've met some pretty intense people, but you can understand why she won so many Olympic gold medals, why she played men's pro hockey, why she's a doctor and also the director of development for the Leafs at the same time. I don't know how you do that. But having met her at that camp, I saw how you do that. And it's a level of intensity and focus that I've never quite achieved. But I got out there for the first game and I was playing forward, thankfully, because I hadn't skated backwards in about 6 months at that point. And my line mates were both from Harvard. So Jennifer Botterill, who's a longtime Olympian, and Tammy Shuchuk, who I think won a couple Olympic medals too. They were line mates at Harvard. And in that year, Harvard was undefeated. They didn't lose a single game. Jennifer averaged 2 goals a game. Tammy averaged 2 points a game. And we couldn't even touch them. I think when we played them, we lost by double digits. So I got to be on a line with them. I scored a lot of goals in that camp. I remember calling my dad and saying, he's, how are you doing? I was like, oh, it's fun. It's really hard. He's like, oh, are you scoring any goals? Yeah, I think I've scored about 10 goals. He's like, wow, maybe you'll make the team. And I was like, I'm playing with 2 people that I think a pylon could stand in front of the net and score 10 goals. I just went to the net and shoveled them in the net. I only scored about 10 pretty goals in my entire hockey career. The rest of them were just standing around the net and knowing how the puck came off the goalie's pads. But certainly while I had a great camp and I had a great experience, I was under no illusion at that point that I was going to make the Olympic team or that I was going to make a national team. So it was a great experience. And I was fortunate enough to go to a few of those camps after. But that was really, I guess, the watershed moment. I was able to play pro hockey for 6 years, which was an amazing experience. Played in all versions of the league, NWHL, the CWHL. I got to play in Calgary with a bunch of Olympians, went to a bunch of more Team Canada camps. It was amazing. It was nothing like what the PWHL looks like now. We got paid nothing. Everything was taken care of. I had to buy my own sticks. It was essentially minor hockey with a scholarship to take all your expenses covered. But I got to play with all the best players in the world, both Canadian and American, and I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. And then finally, 3 months after I quit pro hockey, I started Total Female Hockey. And as Jackie said, I've spent the last 17 years. I started in 2008, not the greatest time to start an online business during a recession where no one wants to give you their credit card information to buy your products, but I did it anyway because I like to do hard things. And I'll say after that first year where I was just head down and that's all I did for a year, my friends would try to get me to go out and I would just myopically focus on my business. It became successful after a year or two and I haven't looked back since. And you know, that first story I told you about my daughter and going into labor with her, you know, I have similar story of my third child who I didn't go into labor on the bench, but we had just won a playoff series, our first ever playoff series for the junior team that I coached. So we had a U22 elite team. It's still at Leaside, and we had never won a playoff series, and we won one, and I was very pregnant. And we won that series, and we were going on to the next series, which was against Cambridge, and I gave birth in between the two series. I have great timing. I gave birth right in between, so I didn't miss anything. And I was back in Cambridge 2 days later, coaching the team with a newborn in tow, which the people who knew me thought nothing of it. It was just same. My dad and my husband, again, in tow, helping with the other two kids. And, you know, the craziness that comes with showing up for a playoff game and having a newborn in tow. And I'll sort of end on this one last little story that really sticks out to me and is one of the big reasons that I do what I do. I remember being able to switch back from mom mode and coach mode like it was nothing. And that's all I had been doing the last 4 or 5 years because I had 2 young ones at home. Every practice plan, every recruiting call, there was a 3-year-old yelling about something in the background. And so that was my normal. But we had never gotten to this height of achievement before with this team. So I was trying to be as prepared as I could, as sleep deprived as I was. And I did the pregame speech. They went on the ice. We scored on the first shift. I feel like the other team barely touched the puck. Apparently, all you have to do is pop out a kid and your team and show up at the rink and everyone's going to like have their best game of the year. I believe we won 4-1. It was pretty smooth sailing the whole way through. Clearly, they were amped up and motivated. But we had a flood between the second and the third period. And I could hear the baby screaming in the stands as I'm coaching in the second period. So my husband brings her down and I'm breastfeeding her in between periods. And my coaches come in, who are both female and very capable. And they say, hey, like, what do you want us to talk about in between periods? And like, they didn't need to ask. They obviously knew what they were doing. I had coached 2 of them since they were 12 years old. And they were now in their early 20s, mid 20s. So you guys got it. And they're like, okay, but we don't, you know, they were nervous because we had never been that far. And I was like, okay, I'll come with you. So I threw a blanket over my shoulder, still breastfeeding the kid, gave the in-between period speech. And I remember one of the girls was like, Kim, no disrespect, I can't, like, they couldn't see anything, but it was a little too much for her. But everyone else there was just eyes on me, a whole group of 15 to 18-year-old elite athletes, eyes on me, fully focused. Certainly they had not seen something like that before. And they went out and again, just dominated in the third period. But that moment in between periods, I hope serves as inspiration for those players and a lot of other players. I mean, I was juggling a lot that day. I'm still juggling a lot as it is now. But to know that you can do a lot, I don't think you can do everything, but you can do the things you love. And there's times they're going to collide and there's no such thing as balance, but that it is possible and that you can create, you know, your own world, which is really what I've done with Total Female Hockey and this business and this coaching career that I have. It started from nothing. No one else had ever done it. And it allows me to spend a lot of time with my kids and a lot of time at the rink, which are, you know, the 2 favorite things I like to do. So I know I've talked a long time and I can talk for days about hockey stories, but I wanted to give a little bit of time for questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so. Sorry,
I've
Stephen.
got a question. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Lisa.
No, I was just going to open up the floor to questions, Stephen. So you go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations, because I think what you do is wonderful. I can identify with one thing. I got to be one time in high school too, but the reaction was a bit different. My parents told me if I work really hard, I might get another one. But my question is, what happens when somebody with a trans kid approaches you to play?
Someone with a trans kid approaches us to play?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't personally gone through that as a coach. So I haven't had a player who identifies that way who's approached us. I know at our organizational level, they are working on what the policy would be on that. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure what that looks like nowadays. I know we have done a lot in the world of women's hockey at Leaside to be very inclusive. I know with other teams that I've worked with in other organizations, I've definitely had experience where coaches have asked me to change my language or use different language when running a practice. So they would ask for different pronouns because they had players who identified in different ways. I remember the first time that happening about 4 or 5 years ago. And while I wasn't perfect at it, because I'm typically saying girls, women, ladies, that's just the vernacular that I became used to, I was very easily able to switch to using more, let's go everyone, and the they and the them and all the things that we're more attuned to today. But I will say I haven't personally had that experience on a team that I've coached. I have had players who identify differently at the skills sessions that I run. And again, I'm doing my best, as we all are, with the language and the messaging to make sure it's as inclusive as an environment as possible. It will be interesting to see if individual associations take that upon themselves to make guidelines, and also how that might look at the Hockey Canada level. Because certainly, there could be varying views on what's acceptable or what is people are comfortable with. And I think it will take sort of the guidelines from Hockey Canada to make sure that we're all acting accordingly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Any other questions? Tom?
Yeah, I just say, wow. Are you a dynamo? Holy mackerel. Are you a charity? Is there anything we can do to help you? Are you looking for something? Helping girls, helping young ladies, watch the pronoun, but helping, I think you're doing a great job. I think it's very important that they get the access to these levels that men have had for years. And I congratulate you a lot. So if we can do anything, talk to us.
Well, I appreciate it. And I will say, one of the things I've always done with Total Female Hockey is I provide a lot of content for free. I think of myself, the 13-year-old version of Kim, who, if I had the internet, would have been Googling how to become an elite female hockey player every minute of every day. And since I started my business in 2008, I've created so much content. I have a podcast now. And so, I just love to share the message out. And that's sort of how I give back to the game. I run a lot of camps. I run a lot of clinics. I coach a lot of teams. That's sort of my paid universe with Total Female Hockey. But, through my podcast and the articles and videos I create on my website and my newsletter, I'm just thinking about myself, sitting in the library going, there's nothing that speaks to me here. And that's the joy I get from people all over the world will email me and say, oh, I listened to your podcast, or I read this article, coaches, players, parents. It's so fulfilling. So I appreciate the offer of help. If anyone knows how to clone me, that's what I actually need, like 5 of me. So if anyone has an inside line on cloning, that would help probably the most.
Thank you. Lars has his hand up, and then Jackie has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Jackie's students keep impressing on us. She has introduced us to some other students. I have a question for you about the future. When will we have the first female head coach or general manager, but head coach for an NHL team?
That's a great question. And I will say I'm biased because I only coach girls. And I love to see women excelling and getting those opportunities. But every time I'm like, I wish that woman was coaching in women's hockey, because they're great coaches, right? They're phenomenal. And I've just, I've picked my lane, and it's very much, let's make women's hockey as best as possible. But I don't think we're far off. I know quite a few women, including Jessica, who's with the Seattle Kraken as the assistant coach. Corey Chevry, who's with our national team, is now in the PWHL, has coached university men's hockey. I could see either one of them being a great candidate to move up to that level. And I just think it's amazing. And it doesn't faze me at all. I wrote in the book, and I always said that my kids asked me each when they were 3 years old if boys even played hockey, because all they've ever known is my world in women's hockey. I haven't coached a guy in 20 years. And now that I'm in Toronto, so I can do that. Might be different if I was in a small town. But I don't think we're far off. I think the women are extremely capable. They are differently capable. And I have the pleasure of working with Hockey Canada and speaking at a lot of coaches' conferences and knowing a lot of these women very closely. And they're as qualified hockey-wise, and maybe better and differently qualified in terms of their emotional IQ or being able to come from it at a different angle. And I know coaching girls, they always want to do everything perfectly. There's a lack of confidence often when we're coaching girls. And I think if those women have coached in the women's game, they have a certain level of empathy that would be really interesting to infuse a little bit more into the pro men's game, where certainly it's cutthroat. They're making a lot of money, so I get it. But I think that perspective of those women who grew up playing women's hockey or have had that involvement with the women's game would be really refreshing as an add-in into the men's game. And that's what I would be most excited about, because I have no question of whether they know the X's and O's or whether they can draw up a power play or a 6-on-5 play at the end of the game. But I think the men's game could use a little bit more of that empathy that might come from the women's side.
Wonderful. Okay, I think Jackie's got a question, and then I believe Ron Wild had a question. You're muted, Jackie.
Okay. How did you get to Iceland, and what was it like coaching in Iceland?
Great. I didn't get to that in my story. And I spoke on a podcast, as you can all tell. I like to speak. And it was a pretty popular hockey podcast. And the coach from Iceland, the head coach of the women's national team, listened to the episode. He reached out to me by email and said, I really liked your development philosophy. I was talking about how I approach the development of players from, very young all the way up to that pro level. And he just wanted to have a conversation. So we had a conversation on, WhatsApp and talked about hockey. And, at the end of the conversation, he's like, I don't know if you have any staff who might be interested in coaching with me at the World Championships in Mexico City. So Iceland's pretty far down the food chain in terms of the divisions at World Championships. So I think we're in the 5th division. He said, I don't know if you have anyone, an assistant coach. And I said, well, when is it? And I looked at the calendar, and he said, oh, it's this time in April. And I was like, I'll come to Mexico City and coach with you. He's like, really? It's like, yeah, why not? So they flew me down. They all speak English. So there's no language barrier there. And it's a very different level than what I have been used to coaching. I would say it's comparable to the U18 kind of top levels that we coach here in Toronto. So I had a lot of experience coaching that level of hockey. It wouldn't have been the same as going and coaching with Team Canada. And so that part felt easy. The team was great. It's really fascinating, Jackie. There are things they just don't know. Like they actually have never learned in the game of hockey, because they have 3 rinks in the country. They have the coaches they have. It's hard to get people to move there to coach. So they have what they have. And there are things that I noticed in that first World Championship going like, that none of them do this along the wall, or none of them seem to know how to get a rebound in front of the net. None of them seem to know how to do this. And then speaking with a coach he's been around them all since they were all 4 years old. He's like, yeah, we've just not taught them that. So it's really an interesting experience coming from this hockey obsessed world that I inhabit and that we all inhabit here in Toronto. And then going to this completely different world where these women are so dedicated, so driven, give so much time to it, but no one's ever taught them how to do a snapshot. Like they're like, oh, we just do wrist shots. I'm like, really? We don't? Okay. So it's been really, I guess, validating in that everything I bring to the table, it just blows their mind. They're so, oh my God, this is so great. Just because they haven't been exposed to the type of coaching that we get here in Ontario. So it's been great. I'm still coaching with them again this season. We had a silver medal at the U18 World Championships last year, and we lost out just on goal differential the last minute of the last game of the tournament. Bulgaria let New Zealand score one more goal, and because of that one goal, New Zealand got the gold medal and went up to the next group. So I have some business to take care of this year with the World Championships. So I'm going to Turkey in January with the junior national team, and then the senior national team plays in Poland. So it's a great way to travel and see the world through the lens of, the hockey community, who again are just as passionate and obsessed as we are. They just don't have the resources and the numbers that we have.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Ron, did you have a question?
Yeah, very quickly. You mentioned growing up that you played soccer with boys. I wonder, would you recommend that today for girls, maybe in smaller communities where there's not as many girls, really good girl players to play with, that they play with boys?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I run up against it all the time. And both my daughters play. They're 8 and 6. One of them's quite good, and she does a lot of extra skills. And when she does the extra skills, they're often with AAA boys. And it's really interesting. The dads are like, why doesn't she play with the boys? I don't think they know I'm a hockey coach. They're like, why didn't she play with the boys? She's so good. And I'm like, because I run a business called Total Female Hockey. So it'd be a little bit weird to have her play with the boys, but we have, so many teams and such a high level here. So to your point, when you look at small towns, even if you look at the makeup of the national team, our Olympic team, a lot of them are from small town Canada. There's not a lot of girls from Toronto or Calgary or Ottawa on that team. A lot of them are from small towns, and they would have grown up playing with the boys because there may not have been another option for them. We have seen a tremendous growth at all age groups in girls hockey. So my daughters, who the 6-year-old, we have teams all over the province we can play. I think at her age group and level, there are 30 teams in the province, which is crazy. And then my daughter, who's 2 years older, plays at the higher level. There's only 10 at the top level. But you look at that, that's 40 competitive teams across the province who are willing to go to tournaments and compete. From everything, we play North Durham, we play Peterborough, we play smaller towns than that. So the growth has been great. And I would say, if you're in small town USA, maybe that is the option you have to go for. But I do think, the social environment is different. And I think that's valuable. And what we do see is a lot of girls who maybe started with the boys coming back because their experience maybe wasn't what they wanted on that social piece in the dressing room. And as I always say to those parents, not that coaches won't celebrate having a girl on the team or encourage her. I just don't know that a lot of them genuinely want her to be the best player on the team. Whereas I genuinely want every girl on my team to be the best player on the team. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. I don't think the boys hockey environment is that welcoming to girls who really want to be the best and might unseat some of those boys, and the parents of those boys and their attitudes might not fit that so well. So I'm thrilled to be in Toronto and to be able to coach somewhere where there's a multitude of options. But hopefully in those smaller communities where the girls do play with the boys, they're going to school together and their families, have dinners together and they're all in the community together. I'm sure that experience probably looks a little different than the girls playing boys here in Toronto does.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've got time for one last question. If anyone has anything they would like to ask. No? Okay, well then I would like, first of all, to rectify an oversight. I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Lisa Whitwell. I'm the host for today's meeting, and I should have introduced myself at the beginning. I apologize. But on behalf of Rotary Toronto Eglinton, I want to thank you officially for your very inspiring words. As I was listening to you, I was trying to sort of summarize in my own mind what really struck me the most. And I think that what has struck me is your determination to not only find the information and the training and the progression for yourself, but to make that information available to young women everywhere, to give opportunities that might not have been there had you not found the information and put it all together. So you're providing opportunities for women to develop skills that they might not have been able to develop. And I'm all for leveling the playing field. So thank you so much for joining us. And we are so grateful to listen to your very inspiring story. So thanks, everybody, or everyone will thank you. Now we're going to move on to the more Rotary business side of our meeting. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to duck out if you've got things you need to do.
Well, I'll run off to the kiddos downstairs and get lunch going, but thank you, everybody. Thanks
Well, thank
for listening
you for
to
joining us.
Thank you.
endless hockey rambling, and good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you so much. Okay. So moving on to Happy Bucks. Does anyone have anything that they are happy about today that they'd like to share with everybody? Ron Denham.
Yeah, I celebrated a significant birthday last week, and I don't want to admit my age to anybody, but in recognition of that birthday, I'm prepared to put $95 in Happy Bucks.
Congratulations for your unnamed birthday.
Yeah.
Lars, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes. This morning I drew a sigh of relief. As everyone may know, we apply every year for grants from the foundation to use for district grants. And at the district conference, I was faced by a few people who have had a number of phone calls and so on and so forth. When will we know if our projects are approved, and when will we get the money from the district or ultimately from the foundation? And we have an upcoming seminar on the 16th of November, foundation qualification, and I would run into the same people again. But this morning I had an email from the foundation saying that our application spending plan is approved, and the money will come in, which means that I actually sent an email to Bob Wallace, who's my culprit in this November event, and I said we can keep the tomatoes and the buns and the apples on the tables. We are safe. So $10. I can't match Rob.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they're pleased about today?
Lisa, it's Bill.
Oh, hi, Bill.
I want to thank Tom, and I'm going to put up $20 for this, for firstly arranging the talk on Monday about the Explorer Shackleton, but also for arranging a table of Rotarians who attended the meeting. Norma was there with her husband Lloyd, Jackie, Glenn, Nan had a friend, Maria was there, and I was there with my wife, Coral, and it was just wonderful for Tom to do it and to do it at the tennis club.
Mhm.
Thank you, Tom. That's $20.
Wonderful.
I-
Ray
I-
Cowan?
I'll match it, but I'll give $5 because I have also enjoyed it. It was an excellent evening, and thank you, Tom. Yes.
Ray, are you waving? You're muted, Ray.
Sorry,
Okay,
that was a false alarm.
Oh, false alarm. Okay. Anyone else?
I'll,
Tom?
I'll give $10 for everybody thanking me. I would give money for my birthday, but I don't have $80 to give.
All righty. if there's nothing else, I'm going to chuck in $20 because tomorrow I am going to Odette Cancer Center at Sunnybrook to have my last treatment. I have been having post-cancer treatment injections to boost my immune system, and tomorrow is my last one. So the whole cancer year is coming to an end tomorrow. So I'm very excited. No more stabbing. No more blood. Okay, if we're all done being happy, then I'm going to turn the floor over to Lars, who is going to give us the weekly recap, but also talk about the District 770 conference that was last weekend. Lars, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and congratulations. That's wonderful news. So we are all. Today happens to be the National Checklist Day, and I have a checklist here because, as Lisa said, we had a district conference, and we were 6 who went to the conference from the club: Anna, Walter Wells, David Richardson, Ron Denham, Neelam, and myself. And I have asked each one of those who attended to just give a snapshot, 30 seconds or less, of what they took away from the conference. And Anna, Walter, David, Ron, Neelam, in that order. So Anna, please.
You're muted, Anna.
Okay, it was a great conference. I came away with the overwhelming feeling of the room just permeated with heart, love, and soul. The heart part, friends reacquainting, and David Miller assured us, take heart. Cities have banded together, and already climate change is improving with their efforts. Love, people relating to each other and expressing especially the amazingness of the Calgary Convention and any other international convention they've gone to. Everything is just so top-notch, so over the top, so, and you know, there were even tears in their eyes. Others had tears in their eyes when some of the speakers spoke. And the soul, well, we had a marvelous speaker at the end who actually talked about communicating with his soul. And out of the blue, it told him what to do. And it impacted his life and has never left him. He's the one that met the Beatles. As well, we had a marvelous speaker, Tracy. She was born without limbs, and yet but she has a bit of residual with her arms. She has sailed, dived 100 times, totally motivated. And the message to us was, you know, just be unstoppable. Go ahead, you can do it. And, you know, don't sit on your duff, do something. Finally, I wanted to say, she said, and she was dancing on Saturday night with her in her wheelchair, just having a blast. Very upbeat person. And I want to say that the band was so excellent. She claimed, Tracy, that it was the best band that she'd ever heard in all her life. And I guess Neelam, Walter, and I must have agreed, because we stayed listening and watching this packed dance floor. It was oldies but goodies, some reggae, just memorable tunes. So everybody had a wonderful time.
Okay, thanks. We have to break it there, Anna.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I knew it would go longer, but
Walter Wells, please.
You're muted, Walter.
Well, actually, I was overwhelmingly impressed with this woman, Tracy, whom Anna mentioned. It's just the epitome of positiveness and courage and happiness. any one of which would have been the opposite for most people. But she had no legs below, her legs were gone above the knee. The left arm wasn't as long as the elbow. The right arm, her hand wasn't there, and she had one thumb, or maybe it was something that a surgeon had built for her out of the end of her arm bone. And it was just amazing.
Good.
It would be a lesson in positivity for anyone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. David, please.
Gonna be very quick. As everyone's already said, the energy at the convention was unbelievable, and all the speakers when they started said, "I just can't believe the love and the energy, the positive energy that they were feeling from the group." And they said that's typically a Rotarian, and you know how we help the community around us. But I have to say the speakers were phenomenal. Between David Miller and the two speakers that spoke to us on Sunday, it was just a really great weekend. And I really do encourage people, if they have not gone to a conference, to make the effort to make it out, even if you only go for one day. And the conference next year is up in Aurelia and at the Fern Resort, and I think it'll be another great event. But if you want to know more about Rotary, this is the starting point, and then after that it's the convention. But I do encourage other people to go, because I think people that have been have gotten so much out of it.
Ron Denham has been to a couple of conferences.
Yeah, I've been to many conferences, and unfortunately we could only be there on the Saturday. And I was impressed. I was informed by David's talk on the environment, what the cities are doing. You know, we despair at times about the climate, and many of us have the impression that in China they're polluting the air with all these new thermal stations. But when David talked about what some cities are doing, I think we recognize that there is a level of leadership which doesn't depend on provincial governments or in the states, state governments or the federal governments. The reality is things are happening. And I thought this was an extremely positive message. The other aspect of all these conferences is reconnecting with people, some of whom I've known for 25 and 30 years. In fact, some go back to when I was governor 30 years ago, still to see them. They're slightly older than they were 30 years ago. But again, great fellowship and camaraderie. Lovely experience. And I agree with what David said. Everyone should have a chance to go there. You really understand what Rotary is all about. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Neelam, you introduced David.
Yes, well, I think in short, not repeating what everyone has said, it was, you go to these conferences to get inspired, to learn, and then to connect within our own district. So all three of those things I could put a check mark. And then I was also pleased to see that compared to a couple of years ago, I had pushed for the environmental content. And not only did we get the keynote speaker, David Miller, but and some of the breakout groups too. So I think it's having your presence felt at the district conference is a great idea for our clubs to go. So I would encourage everyone to try and attend at least one day, if not more.
Okay, thank you, Neelam, and I agree. And there are other events beyond the club events where clubs get together. It's up and the district assembly and up to the in Calgary, which we should try to get a large group from our club to go to, and the district. And there is as probably everyone knows, there is a deadline or checkpoint on the 15th of December. Before that, after that, the price goes up, so that's worth it. A couple of things. Gunitsi is probably well aware of that this day in 1973, she was probably not born by that, but but she has heard about it. The Bosporus Bridge in Istanbul was connected on the 30th of October 1973, and connecting Europe with Asia. And many of us remember this day, what happened in 1995, the referendum in Quebec took place. And as I said, it's the National Checklist Day. It is a result of the fact that there was a plane crash in 1935. And that happened because the pilot of that Boeing 299 model had not properly looked at what the situation before taking off, and the plane crashed. And as a result, a checklist was developed. And closer to Rotary, well, we have lots of checklists actually in Rotary too, but on this day in 1986, the United Nations proclaimed October 30th to be the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. And that is a business that I think Rotary is doing. And I mentioned about the November 16th, it's possible to sign up for the Foundation seminar in Oshawa. It's Saturday. It's free, but you go in on the website and it's from 8:30 in the morning to about 2 o'clock, and it is information about the Rotary Foundation, but also about the grants program and other related things. So with that, I hand it back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lars. Do we have any motions to come forward from any of the service committees? I don't see any hands waving frantically, so I'm going to assume that's a no. Does anyone have any other club business or announcements that they'd like to make? David's waving at me. Okay, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Very quickly, at the conference, and I don't think the ones that were here still on Sunday, because I know Lars and Ron weren't there, but they said that every year, every Rotary Club or every Rotary Club is supposed to put a president citation or goals together for their particular club. And we talk about having so many members, raising so much money for polio. And so every club is supposed to put these goals together. And each year, the district recognizes those clubs that did meet those goals for the year. And our club was one of 27 who met their goals for the year. And so there's over 55 clubs in our district, and we were one of 27. And so we should be proud of the fact that we met, I think, 17 of our 20 goals last year. And so we'll be getting a citation from John Burns, the past district governor, for that. But it was mentioned at the conference on Sunday.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay. Well, if there's no other announcements or club business, then I am going to declare the meeting over. No, I don't see any hands. Oh, Jackie, did you want to say something?
Just gonna say goodbye.
Okay. Well,
bye-bye.
thank you everyone for joining us for a very informative meeting, and we'll see you next week at the club.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.